Banjo Kazooie is a game series that, by all accounts, has been dead for a very long time now. Many fans have speculated for years just when the platforming icon would finally return to our screens in a brand new game from Microsoft. Fans of the franchise are desperate for it, and even though I'm not a huge fan having barely played the games, I would love to see this iconic character return as his games have become true classics, pioneering the Nintendo 64 era all on their own. But very recently, it has been officially confirmed by very trustworthy insiders that apparently there are no Banjo Kazooie games currently being worked on at Microsoft Studios. Being revealed by Jez Corden in an XB2+1 podcast episode, at least since the 26th of June 2024, there is no Banjo game in production and no sign of a future project starting anytime soon.
I can tell you right now, categorically, there is no Banjo game in development as of this podcast on the 26th of June 2024, there is no Banjo game in development right now.
This comes after there have been various claims from many insiders for years that led us to believe that we could be seeing a new Banjo Kazooie game sometime within the next few years. Insider Nate Drake said as much on the Reset Era forums that one was in development without giving any real details about the project, stating that it was an active project, but it didn't get the green light until early last year. This is why I find it's always safer to take any leaks of this kind of nature with a pinch of salt, as it's hard to tell when people are lying, have been misled, or are just doing a bit of trolling. It's not like fans hoping for a new game was exactly baseless, as there were a few indicators that made us expect to be getting a new game soon. There were signs such as Phil Spencer himself being the CEO of Xbox and seemingly being very tapped into what audiences are after. With being an avid gamer himself, surely he'd be aware fans of the series are desperate for a new game. More conclusive than this, however, was Banjo's inclusion into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on September 4th, 2019, being a much wanted fighter by a lot of fans for an extremely long time. And with his addition came, to put it lightly, a ton of hype. I don't think many people, even including those who aren't even really a big fan of the bird and bear, such as myself, were upset at all when this was revealed. I think everyone had a genuine understanding that he deserved this spot. So, you'd believe with all the hype this Smash DLC has generated for the character, proving just how many fans still love Banjo to this day, and were happy to just see him in anything period, it would make sense logically that after this, Microsoft will get straight into development for a brand new Banjo game to capitalize off this success. But now, 5 years later on from this DLC, and it's confirmed they never even started. It's a shame that Microsoft feels this way about one of their more beloved IPs, as Banjo is in desperate need for new content. Now, it's not like I don't understand why Microsoft might be a little hesitant. Obviously, as we all know, his last game, Nuts and Bolts, was a bit of a flop to say the least. This single game is practically what killed the Banjo Kazooie franchise more or less. But it's also because Microsoft more than likely sees more potential with their other IPs such as Halo, Gears of War, or their many new acquisitions. These other titles are undoubtedly more profitable, but I really do find it hard to believe that a new Banjo Kazooie game wouldn't be worth proceeding with. There's no way a new Banjo would sell poorly. Of course, he's not as big as Mario or Sonic, but I'm certain Microsoft could only profit from it. As far as platforming mascots go, he's, at least in my opinion, one of the more iconic ones, essentially becoming the face and arguably the creator of the very specific subgenre of platformers also known as collectathons. If he didn't create it, then he certainly popularized it. Oddly enough, it's really starting to seem like it's an ever-growing trend for these big gaming companies and AAA studios to abandon their beloved characters, specifically with old platforming icons. I myself can perfectly relate to Banjo Kazooie fans, because this is also exactly verbatim what is happening with my favorite platformer character ever, Rayman. I love Rayman games with all my heart. These are my favorite platformers of all time, and although he's been luckier than Banjo when it comes to receiving games over the years, just like Banjo and Microsoft, Ubisoft have effectively killed Rayman. Sure, he was in the Rabbids DLC and featured in their new TV show, but since 2013, there has still not been a new mainline Rayman game to this date. There are many other platformers who have suffered the same fate. It is so frustrating to see these big companies not using these beloved IPs, considering how loved some of these characters like Banjo are. They would more than likely generate profit for their companies and, perhaps more valuably, respect for the companies. Something that they are constantly losing with the constant addition of things that consumers can't stand, such as microtransactions. It almost feels selfish for these companies such as Microsoft with Banjo to just sit on these properties, when I'm sure if they sold them for a reasonable price to a smaller or even of a big studio, I'm sure many of them would be more than happy to buy the rights to the series and continue the franchise people love. Yooka-Laylee proved this. Although this game didn't perform well, it showed developers are passionate and wanted a new Banjo game so badly they made their own attempt at one. I just don't see how Microsoft sees value in sitting on this IP they could be earning from. Like, I thought I had it bad as a Rayman fan, but Banjo fans are truly struggling. There hasn't been a proper Banjo game ever since the 2000s, and fans are desperate at this point. If anything, there is a dire lack of platforming games across the board outside of Mario and Sonic. Each time these old mascots have come back with a brand new game or even just a remake, it has been an amazing success almost every time. Almost. I'm sure if Microsoft cooked up anything, literally anything, I'm not saying they have to make a Banjo game with millions of dollars in their budget, or even have a huge studio involved. Literally, just give it a reasonable budget, give it to one of the many studios you now have under your wing, and you would have a Banjo game within a few years. But I suppose Microsoft are more concerned with shutting down studios rather than using them to make games. There are actually more concrete reasons that composer for the original games Grant Kirkhope elaborated on around a year ago. He believes, for one thing, that there aren't that many Banjo fans out there. And while it's true, his popularity isn't on the same scale as a lot of other games. Platformers are not. But to say there wouldn't be a sizable audience for a new game after how much love we've seen the duo get over the years is laughable. Especially when you consider that Kirkhope worked on the previously mentioned Yooka-Laylee, which went on to raise $3 million via Kickstarter, on top of selling 1 million copies, despite the game not matching expectations. Clearly there is a market for these games. A more concrete reason, however, is he believes you'd have to find the right team, and he's concerned this team doesn't even exist. This could be true. Banjo games were always very unique in their gameplay and, above all else, their humor. Even then, I believe Xbox studios could easily find a studio worth delivering a game for the series. One that comes straight to mind is Double Fine, the studio behind the amazing Psychonauts series and the equally great and hilarious Brutal Legend. Both of these games had amazing gameplay and, more importantly, I think great humor that would translate well to Banjo. Either way, this is all just speculation and theories. Until Microsoft decides they're ready to actually make something for fans of the franchise, I think it's safe to say that, as far as everyone is concerned, Banjo Kazooie as a series is officially dead, with no signs of it returning anytime soon. I hope at the very least Microsoft, seeing some of the backlash this news has received, will wake them up and make them realize they are sleeping on a golden opportunity, and they begin work on a brand new game for the series. The good news about this, at least for now, is that Banjo Kazooie fans can temper their expectations of expecting a new game in the near future, making it so they can't get too disappointed when we inevitably hear nothing about the new game. At the least, there's no longer any false hope. Meanwhile, us Rayman fans still have our hopes high. I mean, please Ubisoft, Rayman 4 is all I need, please!